Yo, 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 whoa, 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 whoa. Alright, I'm just gonna get started. I don't care if anyone's in here. It's time to learn. It's time to learn, boys and G's. Alright, well, we're live, so let me just hit play here.
Fan identity can be performed in so many different ways, and fandom can mean different things to different people.
From Beatlemania back in the day to football clubs to Star Trek conventions to now at the point you can be a fan of absolutely anything, including a brand.
My definition of a fan is someone whose willingness to engage with a brand transcends necessity or even reason.
My definition of a fan would be somebody who finds inspiration from something, be it music or a brand or a team. Finds inspiration so much that they would alter their lifestyle to support that and to follow that.
A fan is somebody who has a deep emotional relationship with something or somebody.
It's being obsessive but also being discerning.
Fan is someone who actively champions an idea, a culture, whatever it is. In terms of brands, that's someone who is essentially a brand ambassador.
Hi, I'm Ollie. I'm a fan of PlayStation.
I'm Seamus, and I'd say I'm a fan of Marmite.
I'm Emily. I live in North London and I work as a freelance writer and editor. I also look after my own blog, which is a kind of mixture of style and sport. My earliest memories of Nike are probably just being at school in PE lessons, kids wearing Nike trainers. I could be described as a sort of a brand ambassador, if you like.
It's all snowy, it's all Christmassy. Oh, and what is that? A fire. And a massive, what is this? A massive woolly mammoth and a giant. I was at school and my classmate brought his PlayStation 1 in. It was amazing. It was the best thing I'd seen by a mile. I was obsessed since then.
You know, you can have Marmite for breakfast, and you can have that on toast and what have you. But it's one of those things which you can use it for every meal of the day. So if you're making gravy, you know, you can just put a bit of Marmite into the gravy and that makes it a bit nicer. Chili con carne, peanut butter, garlic bread. But into the gut, when you make the garlic butter, you put Marmite into the garlic butter and it's fabulous.
The fuck is Marmite?
The difference between a fan and a consumer, I think, is kind of the difference between a sort of one-night stand and a meaningful relationship. Like, if you go out and you buy a product from a brand, you know, you've got no guarantee they're going to call you a week later and buy your product again. But if they're a fan, then, you know, and you properly engage them, then you know they're going to get a call from them a week later. And that's the difference between, you know, proper fandom and just being a consumer.
Fans are very keen on differentiating their activities and their identities often from what they see as the undiscriminating consumer, the kind of casual viewer or purchaser. In actual fact, however, fans are always already consumers.
I think the difference is that they put more in, they give more back to the brand, but equally they expect more back in return.
I'd been writing my blog for about 6 months and Nike approached me. They talked to me to see whether I would be interested in running the San Francisco Marathon and me blogging about my training experience and obviously about the running experience and taking my journey from being someone who's a bit of a novice runner.
So this is I guess like an independent film company. It only has 200 views and pretty much the quality, wow, it's only in 720p. What the fuck? So pretty much like the quality and like the angles and shit and the camera seems a bit shaky, but I think this will be pretty interesting.
Runner to being able to run a marathon.
So I was born in St. Louis, Missouri, and we moved back to the UK when I was only about 1 or 2 years old. And guess where we moved to? Just down the road from Burton-on-Trent, which is where they make Marmite. But it wasn't until I moved to the USA in about 2000 when I really appreciated that Marmite was something I actually really more than just liked. And that's when I created the website.
Everything's changed since the digital age. I mean, now first thing you do is get a website. But more recently, Twitter and stuff like that, it makes you
That's
more
old as
accessible.
Now with communication.
Bro, look
design,
at
it
old
makes-
ass Twitter. I remember these days. It is so unpleasing to the eye compared to all the crazy fucking colors and shit that we have today. It's kind of interesting. Brings back old vibes, kind of like old YouTube. But yeah.
Makes you a lot more accessible.
Now with communication channels open to them, they now have an enormous influence on brand successes and brands cut through.
Perhaps in the past it would just be two, schoolmates talking about the shows that they would, they're going to watch that night. Now that influence spreads much wider.
You could be a million online together talking about something, and you could create a movement if you like.
The ways in which fans can interact both with brands, text and each other has been both accelerated and facilitated, and I think crucially, fandom has become now something that can be experienced sort of 24/7.
With the digital age, you can just show people your stuff. And so I think the big change is definitely about visibility.
So, a product that's been around for a while, but I haven't had a chance to do a bit of commentary on it. The product we're talking about, of course, is Marmite cashew nuts. The problem with them is that when you open them, you can't just have one. They're just so good.
This guy probably cringes me out the most with his fucking Marmite addiction. I mean, I don't know. What the fuck is that shit pretty good? I don't fucking know, dude.
Brands are so much more transparent than they used to be. I think previously there was a sense that people could see a metaphor of a brand. So it was like Pepsi is the choice of a generation, Nike's the brand that helps you just do it. But now, because of social real-time media, everything else, people can sort of see through these metaphors into the actual companies behind the brands, which means that people can get a lot closer to the brands. And if you're a fan, that's great because you can contribute to the brand, you can find out what makes it tick. So I think the way that social media has united disparate groups of people from different countries all around the world is really sort of supercharging fandom, especially around brands.
Certainly if you're looking at fan culture, I think for a brand like Fred Perry, looking at social media and engagement with those fans, it's a medium that's made for a fan brand, and as long as you can manage that well and you give the fans and deliver the fans interesting information, then I think social media for us is becoming more and more important now in our communication structure.
Bro, this whole transition here, I'm just gonna talk shit. This fucking shit right here was the most pointless little fucking snippet ever, like right here where they're just trying to show
a medium that's made for a fan brand, and as long as you can manage that
I can't fucking read this shit's moving way too fast.
The fans and deliver the fans interesting information, then I think social media for us is becoming more and more important now in our communication structure.
God damn it, I got it. Fuck. Be right back. Ah, stupid fucking bird. Now where were we?
So we flew into San Francisco, and we had, I think, one day and one night where we kind of taken around and shown the city.
And then we went down to the expo the day before, pick up your race number, you can check out the course, and yeah, kind of go home to shit yourself, basically. This book we got given before the marathon, and kind of slipped inside was a little note from Paula Radcliffe just wishing us good luck. Really cool thing to get when you're feeling pretty nervous just before the marathon. Then kind of midway round the marathon, about starts of mile 19 basically. It's just the pressure on your knees is immense. I really started to kind of hit the pain barrier. You know, couldn't walk downstairs for a few days afterwards. And then I think it wasn't until 3 months later I thought I got away with it, and taking the nail varnish off my toes, and looked down, realised I had some sort of black toenails, could lift them off. But they've grown back, so no lasting damage, fingers crossed.
The fuck?
I wasn't really binging until I got FIFA, a footballing game that just got me hooked. And I was playing that, sort of doing all-nighters. When I was at school, on school holidays, I could do a few days at a time, once in a week at a time. When a new game comes out, I could get so into it that I could, on top of my job, I could do maybe 6 hours a day, and weekends I could do an all-nighter. Yeah, but it kind of hasn't changed much.
Fandom for PlayStation, and I think this works for most brands, like most fans set the agenda because they live and breathe and are so immersed in that world. It kind of consumes their downtime, their high time, their communication with their peer groups. And I think very much fandom, fans, particularly for us, can become some of your biggest influencers.
Fans can definitely be influencers in terms of latest trends, but also brands.
It was Christmas 2001-2002, and I got a phone call from Radio 4 asking if I'd do an interview about Marmite, and I thought this was crazy.
My partner is pregnant at the moment, and she craves Marmite on practically everything at the moment. And so I think we've got three jars of Marmite in the cupboards right now.
Seamus Waldron from ilovemarmite.com. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
That was the beginning of a year where I reckon I did more PR about Marmite than Marmite did.
What do you think? I think that's the result, isn't it? Marmite chocolate, very, very nice. Definitely really good.
I was interviewed for the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, the International Herald and Tribune, the New York Times, all these American-based media outlets. I was quoted in, or they'd found my website and they referenced it. And then throughout the world, people were talking about Marmite.
And numerically, fans may still be a small percentage of who you're trying to reach. That fan voice could reach out alongside your marketing and your communication strategy.
They're going to be the people that go to the pub and tell their mates how amazing your album is, and they're going to share your video. They're gonna share your content. They're gonna go out and be the mouthpiece for the message that your artist wants to put across, or the music that you want to put across. And we all know that's more valuable than just a banner ad. It's very important that someone's out there talking about you, and 90% of the stuff that I look at or that I maybe want to buy are the things that my friends have told me that they like.
I'm someone that kind of likes Nike and probably takes lots of the positive messages that it's trying to send out, and I certainly share those with people around me, whether they're sports fans or not, just because I think that the stuff's cool. From anything like the Liberty print dunks to some of the projects that they're doing, just down to the sportswear as well.
Not every fan is a creative type, but for others they do want to be designing the logo for the year. And we've done that in the past with Big Brother and Skins, where we let people come up with sort of logos. The passion that fans have for the show and sort of the ability to harness their creativity is, if you're a fan of Skins, you will want to go out and create stuff if we give you the help to do that.
Whether you're engaged in the wider fan community or even if you're not potentially, fandom always enables a form of creativity.
Bro, did this fucking guy really rap about his dumbass Marmite addiction? I don't like any of these people. Maybe the Nike chick, but barely, bro.
whether it be bands where you've got things like Rage Against the Machine getting to #1.
See, that's the fucking craziest thing, is these people become popular because their influence for the dumbest things ever. And that's what we're seeing today. People become popular for nothing at all. And then you have to sort of sit back and watch all the bullshit that they get to spew on these platforms because the amount of influence and attention they get. I don't know. This shit's kind of fucking... Wow. Kind of mind-boggling. For lack of a better fucking word.
Because someone believed in the record and wanted to make something happen. You've got fans writing episodes of Doctor Who, but then on the flip side, you've got brands like Walkers who are actually turning over their product range to their fans and allowing them to sell them and make money from them.
Any brand that is lucky enough to have fans would be idiotic not to sort of stimulate and engage those fans. What you have to do is essentially reward them with additional value or interactivity. You need to talk to them as well. I mean, I know it's a cliche, we talk about moving from a monologue to a dialogue, but you've got to have a conversation with them. You've got to see what makes them tick. What would they like from the brand? What can you do for them? I think making them feel more rewarded just kind of gets that lovely sort of circle where, you know, the more rewarded they are, the more they contribute to the brand, and it just keeps going.
It's been a kind of really good relationship. They always let me know about new stuff that's coming out, anything new that I'd like to try or get involved in. And likewise, they ask my opinion on, sometimes if they're coming up with kind of new sports kit, things like that, they might ask. They wanted to create a new dance kind of high top. They went out and wanted to kind of consult a few people, and I used to be a dancer, so they came speak to me to find out, you know, what was already on the market, but and then also what are dancers actually wearing. I always want to try out new stuff and see how it's working for me. And then if it's something that I feel like other people like me would be A, interested in, or B, would benefit from hearing about, then I'll write about it.
Brands that are cultural icons take the emotion but build on it, and if you look at brands like Converse that's been around for 103 years, or Fred Perry that just had a reunion gig with the Specials, they're brands that are embedded in that culture.
For a brand like Fred Perry, it's not necessarily a fashion decision. They make decisions based on experiences they've had with the brand. They make emotional decisions about purchase. Every decision is an emotional decision, but the one consistent that has, I guess, delivered that emotion or imparted that emotion has...
That's important what he said. Every decision you make is an emotional decision, and so many factors take place into someone making a decision, such as like who referred you to buy this thing, or which media you're consuming, which commercials, shit like that. So that was a pretty cool point that he made, but yeah.
In the brand's association with music.
Of course, fans are amazingly powerful, but a lot of people go out there seeing it from the benefit of the brand when it should always be seen through the eyes of the fan itself.
So if you've got a marketing person who wants to engage with fandom, if they are not a fan themselves and haven't kind of experienced that and don't have a sort of reflexive awareness of that, that's going to be a much more difficult process. So in a sense, what you would really want to do is bring fans into the process of the design of the strategy.
A good example would maybe to look at the music industry, where Kevin, one of the biggest fans of Soulwax, has worked his way up for being community manager and publicist for all Soulwax's and Too Many DJs affairs.
People would ask Dave and me, like, what happens with this remix and when is it coming out on vinyl? And we'd be like, I don't know, man, ask Kevin. So it seemed to be like a logical solution. I was like, why don't we take Kevin on tour with us?
My job title is a PlayStation super user. I found out about the job from my friend. They were looking for a position for a gamer to try out the new PlayStation product. I instantly jumped at the chance. You know, I'm a PlayStation super fan who tests out the new consoles, and I can give that feedback to marketing staff to help launch games and consoles.
Calling all bloggers, tele-lovers, noisemakers, and rebel-rousers. We're putting a team together. Yes, we're handpicking our best fans to be part of the all-new E4s.
The E4s project, we managed to find a group of people who are not just passionate about the programs we put on, but actually really want to be sort of championing E4 itself. And so the more that we can use that power to sort of spread the word and get people, you know, get them talking about the shows that are forthcoming is actually really good for us. And we've seen that with Skins over the years. Every single season has always looked back and sort of looked at the things that the fans do and don't like and sort of tried to address some of that to try and make the show as great as it can be.
I think if you're a brand and you're not listening to the people, the voice of the people who wear your product or support your product or endorse your product, then at some point you're definitely going to have some problems.
Marmite do send me stuff. They send me all sorts of stuff. And I find it quite interesting because they will never turn around and say, could you put this on your website? They'll never turn around to me and say, could you review this? And they'll definitely never say, you know, could you put something and say that you like it? I've been really lucky because the people who make Marmite have let me say whatever I think. And I'm not a yes man. And sometimes I do say things that perhaps they would never say in a PR statement. But they go with it, you know, they make the most of it because they understand that the voice of the fan is really powerful and it should be what it is as opposed to what they want it to be.
Artists need to understand now how to speak to their fans. It's become very complicated and media consumption so fragmented that you have to understand where your potential fans are.
I mean, the music industry is where fan culture began, but even they have had to move with the times, and you've got really well.
Damn, that's kind of interesting. The music industry is where fan culture began. Fan culture began with music. I'm assuming next was movies, maybe something like that. Anyways.
Established bands like Radiohead and the Kaiser Chiefs turning over their entire album to their fans in order to do something a bit different.
Investing in them, especially with our last record, we did it in a weird way where we let them choose 10 out of the 20 tracks we recorded to make their own personal album and do their own artwork. We recorded a bucket load of songs, I mean 25 in total, but we put 20 up on a day, no one knew it was happening, and then you could choose your 10, make your artwork, you could sell it on and make the money yourself.
Kaiser, that shit looks dope. What the fuck is this? This thing looks dope. Create your own version of our album. Oh crap. Make $1 for each one you sell. What the fuck? That's pretty crafty.
Your artwork, you could sell it on and make the money yourself.
That's kind of like when Kanye did the stem player shit. He's like, yeah, just remix all my songs and however you want to hear them. That's pretty cool.
Had a sort of a big taxi with blacked out windows pick me up, take me to the airport, then flew over. I had a taxi driver with the sign with my name on. Felt like a bit of a, you know, VIP going over there. Arrived at the event, GameX in Stockholm, and I went on stage, you know, a few hours later. Just finished presenting the Vita on stage to 200 people, and I didn't die.
There are lots of great brands out there who are getting it right, who are going out, finding their fans, rewarding them and engaging them, and they're reaping the rewards.
Recently in the summer I was asked if I'd go on a daytime television program to see if I could beat the world record for the amount of Marmite eaten in a minute. And what you're meant to do is you're meant to get your Marmite jar and basically eat as much as you can. And so we had a barbecue and I thought, okay, I'll try it. I'll just do one big spoonful of it. And I took one big spoonful, it went down fine. The problem was I felt rather ill. The researcher wasn't overly happy when I just out and out said I wasn't going to do it after that. But you know, sometimes I wish I'd done it because, you know, being in the Guinness Book of World Records could be quite cool. But maybe you can only take your fandom so far, and that was one step too far.
Ew. Because fans are creative and they really would want a space for their agency, you can't approach fandom as a sort of one-shot deal where one marketing campaign and you're kind of working with the fandom.
Proper fandom is about a long-term play for brands. It's about cherishing them, it's about giving them all the stuff they want, added value, interactivity, like I've said, and having a proper dialogue with them. I think that if they do that and they invest in the fans, and the fans will in turn invest back in them. It sounds cliche, but a fan is for life.
So if I'm really a fan of something, I'm going to want that fan object to have a certain continuity. So if a brand is reformulated or there's a new product range, that could actually agitate fandom.
If you slip up as an artist or you do something that maybe they don't like or maybe they're against, they definitely will tell you about it now. You have to be open to reacting to that and having that dialogue, and you see brands messing that up quite a bit.
Whoever thought up a Marmite breakfast bar should really have not woken up that morning. Absolutely disgusting. I mean, I was the one who was clawing it out of my mouth. It was horrible. So you'll never hear me say a good word about Marmite breakfast bars. So, if I don't like it, trust me, I will tell you.
I think that the very definition of fandom is that it's something that's deeply emotional and it's quite organic, and I think it has to happen naturally to a certain degree.
There's a process in which you can take a consumer and make them a fan, and take a fan and make them an advocate, but that has to be slow and thought out and done properly. The danger is when a brand just jumps in and tries to manufacture their fans.
It doesn't matter how many fans you've got on a brand unless they're real fans. It's just lip service.
A like on a Facebook, it's the new database, right? It's the new saying, I've got 1 million people on my database. I think I treat likes as an invitation to engage, right? That's exactly what it is.
The kind of like option gives Facebook the kind of possibility of kind of maximising numbers of people who are going to kind of sign up to that, as it were, and they may not necessarily feel that they are a fan.
I think there's a huge difference between someone just liking a page and being a genuine fan. I once saw a study that someone said clicking like on a branded Facebook page is equivalent to kind of a grunt in a conversation. It's just a grunt of acknowledgement. There's been a ridiculous kind of like land grab for likes on Facebook, and brands are just so concentrated on getting them, they don't actually know what they're going to do when they have these millions and millions of fans.
Brands have been found out for astroturfing, going into forums and having paid people to do it. The new version of that is there's some agencies out there that are actually paying people to like things.
Brands need to think, is that doing anything? Is it really engaging with those fans?
It's completely contradictory to what we've said earlier, how we define a fan. A fan is someone that has a natural affinity with or passion for a brand. The idea being that you're going to go on there and be paid to like a brand just contradicts that entirely. And I think it's a house or a business model built on sand. It's such a Pavlovian kind of approach. It's like press the button, get a treat, and that's just not how it should be.
Money can't buy you love, and you can't buy fans.
Or can you?
My fiancée Patrina, she sometimes will make fun of me about the whole Marmite thing that I have going. But she can't complain because she is a member of the Marmarati.
Look at that, we're a family of Marmarati.
When she was heavily pregnant, we took a photograph of her with her enormous bump, and I took a Marmite label, and using Photoshop wizardry, I made it so that her bump was a big Marmite label.
In the first sort of steps of our relationship, and I found out she was into Call of Duty.
Oh.
And it was amazing because I don't think I've ever met a girl who's been into gaming before. Yeah, we stayed up all night that night playing.
This dude literally can't wait for this interview to be over so he can just go fucking play video games. He's just like, he can't fucking wait. You can tell by his body language, this fucking guy.
In Call of Duty online together, it was just a gift from heaven.
The drivers for fan identity are many and varied, really, but there's a couple of key ones. Community is a key one. So often if we're talking about fans, we're not talking about individuals, we are talking about fan cultures. So fandom can be a way of belonging to some kind of project, which can give meaning.
Even in something like Marmite, there is a community there, but it's just the community of meeting people and talking to people. It's a way of breaking the ice in a way.
Run Dem Crew meet at Nike's pop-up store, which is 1948 in Shoreditch. And it's kind of run by a guy called Charlie Dark, who's a DJ and also kind of a bit of a wordsmith. He's a poet and he's also a teacher. It's expanded from kind of 3 of them running out from his living room, I guess. So now I can be anywhere up to about 80 people. You kind of just go out kind of racing around London. The association with Nike isn't particularly overt. It's something that Nike have done to kind of improve their brand image.
I think it's really important for companies to give back, you know, and to work closely with the people and the influencers to basically wear their product. If anything, just to kind of show them in a different light. For myself personally, a lot of young people I work with, you know, their only experience of Nike is basically going to Nike Town. It kind of opens their minds up to kind of different possibilities and collaborations.
Passion and a sense of aliveness, a sense of vitality that you feel, you know, when you're a fan of something. It's a particular type of experience where people feel more alive, they feel in touch with themselves when they're engaging with the object of their fandom.
When we had the last British election, let's just say we did some guerrilla dancing. I had half of my dancers from Buckinghamshire wearing I Love Marmite t-shirts, and our dancers in London, they were wearing the I Hate Marmite, and we went down to the London Eye and shot a video.
Fans are very important because they're going to be there, hopefully, if you look after them, they're going to be there for the next album, for that tour.
I think fans are vital to a brand, and I think even more so now.
Fans are incredibly important for the brand. Obviously, their loyalty from a consumer perspective is like gold. They are fundamental to the success of the brand.
It's all about the fans. That's all it's about. Without them, you wouldn't exist.
I think the fan is king.
Definitely a fan of like Nike trainers. It does go back to like when I'm a kid, do you know what I mean? And I was really into basketball.
I'm a fan of Chelsea Football Club, early nights and audiobooks, and I'm a fan of shoes.
I'm quite excited by Star Wars Lego. That really excites me.
I'm a fan of Guinness. I'm a fan of gin. I'm a really big fan of food.
Massive fan of Radiohead. That's one of the reasons I'm here now.
I do own a Lionel Richie fan club t-shirt. Does that count?
And I'm a fan of The Wire. I've watched that so many times. I've even won a quiz.
I'm a fan of Oaxaca, Wagamama, Addison Lee, Denim, Patagonia, Oliver Spencer. Too many.
Remember when you smoked weed on Joe Rogan? Did you?
The fuck? Yeah, I guess there's a lot of different fandom out there. What's this? Okay, this doesn't have any sound. This is probably a pretty interesting video, but I'm obviously not going to read this shit. Fans become content makers. What's this? As soon as the first Star Wars movie was released in '77, fandom grew rapidly. Fan clubs and conventions were spreading like wildfire, but this time communities were more vocal and participative than ever, creating their own fanzines and art. Lucasfilm even felt the need to dedicate an entire department to fan relations, which is still active today. Okay, this is interesting, but I need something with sound here. I guess maybe brands or something else here. Let's see what this guy is.
I hope there's some Jonas Brothers in here. Not as much as I wanted there to be. There were so many things I could have talked about that I had to take it down. But basically, hi everyone, and welcome to Fandom 101, the pop chat guide to fans. And so I spend my day with kids' books, and it's pretty great. But it's much more common for those in my field to be stuff for never shutting up about, and that's brands. To forget that a lot of people don't actually realize that fandom is a very specific concept, and it's not just a word that can be slapped on any audience. To boil it down to its very bare bones, a fandom is a community of fans who engage with each other, and it's not controlled or organized by a brand or somebody who watches it and enjoys it. And a fandom are the people who take it a step further and might go and write fan fiction about Ted Lasso, which I have checked, and there is a lot. They might change their display names. They might join a group chat. So they take it further.
It's
than
so
just being like,
weird.
"Oh my
I've
God,
never been that fucking obsessed with someone or something to like create a fan page or literally mold your personality around someone who's famous. Like that shit is so fucking weird. Bro, be yourself. What the fuck? I'm not gonna fucking watch this whole thing, I'll tell you that. Guess I'll go back to where I was at. Let's see what they're talking about, Apple and Nike.
Coke is just soda, Tylenol just acetaminophen, and Levi's are just jeans. Yet consumers go out of their way to select these specific brands over others.
An economist would say, how is this possible that a rational consumer would be willing to pay more for exactly the same thing? We love to think about ourselves as rational. That's not how it works. A very famous study done by colleagues at Duke University had flashed either the Apple logo or the IBM logo to two randomized groups of participants.
The study found that after being subliminally exposed to the Apple logo, compared to when you've been exposed to the IBM logo, participants performed better on creative tasks.
And the argument is that Apple has been telling you this story over and over again, that Apple is the brand for hip, cool, fun, creative people.
This is the true power of brands. They can influence our behavior in ways that extend way beyond the point of sale. So, to what degree can the influence of brands wreak havoc on our ability to make rational spending decisions? This is Your Brain on Money. This is Americus Reed. He studies identity and marketing at the University of Pennsylvania.
When I make choices about different brands, I'm choosing to create an identity. When I put that shirt on, when I put those shoes on, those jeans, that hat, someone is going to form an impression about what I'm about. So if I'm choosing Nike over Under Armour, I'm choosing a kind of different way to express affiliation with sport. The Nike thing is about performance. The Under Armour thing is about the underdog. I have to choose which of these different conceptual pathways is most consistent with where I am in my life.
And once a consumer makes that choice, their relationship with a brand can deepen to the point where they identify with the brand like family. And once you identify with a brand, it can shape the way you behave.
And it's really interesting because they will also, if someone talks bad about that product, brand, or service, they will be the first to go out and defend. Why? Because an attack on the brand is an attack on themselves.
Dang. So true.
Michael Platt is a professor of neuroscience, marketing, and psychology whose research demonstrates how our perception of brands influences our decisions.
There's an idea in marketing, which is that we relate to brands in the same way we relate to people. It's like, I love this brand, or I hate this brand. Of course, what people say, right, can often be different from what's really going on in their heads. So we thought, well, why don't we just ask the brain directly?
Michael and his team observed the brains of iPhone users and Samsung Galaxy users with an MRI machine, while they heard good, bad, and neutral news about Apple and Samsung.
Apple customers showed a brain empathy response toward Apple that was exactly what you'd see in the way you would respond to somebody in your own family.
Strangely, Samsung users didn't have any positive or negative responses when good or bad news was released about their brand.
Bro, Samsung users are the real fucking AIs of the world. Yo, Samsung users are the real NPCs, bro. Just like anything you tell them, they're just like, still love my Samsung. I mean, goddamn.
The only evidence that Samsung users showed was reverse empathy for Apple News, meaning if the Apple headline was negative,
Yeah, that's the one thing. They hate Apple. Like, that's their whole thing. They're just like, nah, I don't give a fuck how bad Samsung is, man. As long as it ain't fucking Apple.
showed was reverse empathy for Apple News, meaning if the Apple headline was negative, their brain reflected a positive response.
You know, it really shows us that Apple has completely defined the market here. Samsung customers, it seems from their brain data, are only buying Samsung because they hate Apple.
Literally, bro. Literally. Bro, I'm telling you, this is like the last election. They only voted for the one guy because they didn't like the other guy. Right? That makes sense? I guess that does make sense, doesn't it?
The kicker? The Samsung users didn't report feeling the results their MRIs showed. What was happening in their brains and what they reported feeling towards Apple and Samsung were totally different.
Most people just...
Right, yeah. They don't care, like, how good their product is. They're just like, nah, we fucking hate the other guy. That's what I'm trying to... That's what I meant to say if I wasn't so clear. Yo, Samsung users are fucking weird. I mean, actually, I just want to say Android users in general. Samsung's pretty cool. No homo, yeah.
Feeling towards Apple and Samsung were totally different.
Most people just don't realize that they are subconsciously choosing brands because those brands have some kind of self-expressive value.
People are asleep.
You can see there's a lot of power here in terms of shaping consumers' decisions. As we learn more and more about that, we have to think much more deeply about the ethical, legal, and societal implications of doing that.
So as consumers, what can we do to make informed choices? Well, the best thing we can do is be aware of the influence that brands hold.
I think it's important to always pause and think a little bit about, okay, why am I buying this product?
And like it or not, brands aren't going anywhere.
I've heard lots of people push back and say that I'm not into brands. I take a very different view. They're not doing anything any different than what someone who affiliates with a brand is doing. They have a brand. It's just an anti-brand brand. When I think about what is it that I've learned about identity over time, I think a lot of it has to do with the fundamental need that we as humans have to have support systems. Perhaps it was the church, it was the community, it was these other institutions that existed. Now brands have stepped in as pillars of our identity. So I'm very much motivated to see that in that positive light.
Man, the Apple logo is so iconic. That shit is crazy. They changing the world. Honestly, I feel like a brand could be so much more successful if they just have a fucking compelling logo or just like a aesthetically pleasing logo. I think that's all that really matters to most people. Damn, this whole brand shit's got my brain fucking jizzing. Let me find one more brand video here. What the fuck? I didn't even click that shit.
Design and branding are part of every design and branding are part of every single thing that we do as humans.
Facts.
It's a way of signaling to others non-verbally who we are, what we believe in, what is important to us. There was a time when a different form, a different flavor, a different bottle shape, those things really did excite consumers, people. But people have so much more power than they've ever had before. They want to understand and know that the things that they're buying are coming from companies they feel are worthy of contributing to. And that's something that we have really never seen before. And that has created a real democratization of design and branding. Hi, I'm Debbie Millman, and I am a brand designer. I am an educator, and I am the chair of the Masters in Branding program here at the School of Visual Arts in New York City.
Podcast
My
host.
most recent book is called Why Design Matters, which is based on my long-running podcast, Design Matters with Debbie Millman.
Tap in. Tap in.
Design and branding are some of our earliest behaviors as humans. As far back as 10,000 years ago, we started to construct symbols to communicate our beliefs, and we began to do this all over the planet. I consider those early constructions very bottom up. We created these symbols for each other, by each other, for free. It's really only in the last 250 or so years that the model of bottom-up branding was tipped and turned when the corporation began to appropriate that behavior to create widespread recognition for branded products. Whether it's a religion, political platform, sugar-free beverage, all of these constructions use branding in
all that shit.
exactly the same way to create more recognizable consensus. But it's really only in the last 10 years that we have begun to see that top-down model begin to flip back to bottom-up again. And that is really the thing that excites me almost more than anything today. Branding is no longer just a tool of capitalism. Branding has become a profound manifestation of the human spirit. People aren't as interested in different anymore. They're looking much more critically to see what organizations stand for. A really good example of an organization that is taking some risks with communicating what they believe is what Nike has done with Colin Kaepernick. When Nike first introduced the idea that they were supporting Colin Kaepernick, quite a lot of people were up in arms. But that initial wave of displeasure was fleeting. And what we saw long term was a majority of people were actually very supportive of Nike communicating their beliefs through the behavior of the brand. And then we also began designing our movements in this bottom-up way. And one of the most powerful and one of the most successful has been Black Lives Matter. It has all the tenets of branding. It has a name, it has a hashtag, it has a website, it has a logo, it has passionate belief. But it's much more than a brand. What this movement has done is question, challenge, and provoke behavior change. We've also seen that happen with the pink pussy hat. We've seen that happen with Me Too. Certain embedded behavior is no longer being tolerated. And we've seen behavior transformed. We really do have the power to change the future of this planet, just with the sheer decisions that we're making about what we buy and what we choose to contribute to. The markers of success or failure in branding are really evident. It's in how many people believe you. Anybody that is thinking about creating a brand, the first question has to be why? Why do we need this thing, idea, belief, product? Why? The second question has to be, what is the benefit? People are going to be giving you money for this product, or people are going to be giving you a piece of their soul if it is a movement. What is the benefit for humanity? And if you have sound, strategic answers to both of those questions, then you have something that you can begin to build on, to create something that has meaning, both for the planet and for humanity.
Get smarter, faster with videos from the world's biggest thinkers.
Interesting. Neuromarketing. See, this is kind of interesting to me. Alright, I'm gonna fuck with the neuromarketing. I might get into neuromarketing. That's how fucking sick it sounds, bro.
About 100 years ago, companies in the Western world ran into a problem. Consumers had everything they needed, and so the companies came up with a great idea.
You just can't beat a lucky strike.
Damn.
New Busy Day dessert.
Persuade people that they need more things, even things they didn't really know they needed.
That's 400 speed film for sandwich.
And nowadays, companies are studying your brain to get you to keep buying more stuff. This is called neuromarketing, and neuromarketing is like marketing on steroids.
Companies know us better than we know ourselves.
The brand exists nowhere else but in the mind of the consumers.
The important thing to remember through this is the brand, through their marketing, their advertising, they are trying to control your behavior, aka they're trying to get you to purchase their product. So that's like the important thing to remember through this is they're controlling your behavior.
We're going to tell you how companies are getting into your head. In the 1950s, a clever marketer shocked the world with an astonishing experiment. He flashed the messages, drink Coca-Cola and eat popcorn on a cinema screen too briefly for the audience to even notice. He claimed this had people rushing to the counters in droves to buy Coke and popcorn. If this story sounds too good to be true, then that's because it is. Thankfully, we're not that easy to brainwash.
Turned out it was all BS. He made that up. There's no such thing as a brain's buy button.
This is Prince Guman, a marketing professional. He and neuroscientist Matt Johnson wrote a book on how companies tailor their marketing to our brains. So the good thing is, we are not mindless shopping zombies, but we do make a lot of our decisions subconsciously. And that's where neuromarketing comes in. Companies are trying to better understand how our brain works to figure out what we really want. Traditional marketing studies work like this. Someone will ask me, do you want an apple or do you want a chocolate bar? And I'd say, I of course want the apple. But do I really want the apple?
So we feel as if we're in control. We feel as if we're the author of our decisions and we're thinking through these things very rationally. But study after study after study shows that we are extremely irrational and that we're, generally speaking, pretty unaware of the full range of factors which ultimately inform and sometimes actually decide the different behaviors and paths that we take.
In short, we don't always know what we want. We don't know if we actually want the apple or if we prefer the chocolate bar. But our brain doesn't lie. And that's why neuromarketers have adopted a range of technologies in their marketing studies to see what's happening under the hood inside consumers' brains. Functional magnetic resonance imaging and electroencephalograms measure activity in the brain. Eye tracking shows where we direct our attention, and heart rate and skin conductance show what we find exciting.
That shit's cool as fuck.
For better or worse, people are complex and the brain is really complex.
Uma Kamaka is a scholar whose research revolves around how we make decisions.
What neuroscience does is it gives us access to some of these emotional elements or these elements that might not be fully conscious and tells us a little bit more about some of the things that might also be contributing to people's experiences and choices.
Take Cheetos, for example. When its parent company Frito-Lay asked consumers how they felt about the brand, many said, well, it's a bit of a kid's snack. But when they looked at their brains, it turned out people got a real kick out of getting their fingers messy with this orange dust that they're covered
bro.
in. It is fun.
There was something subversive about that orange dust on your fingers. There was something a little unusual about it. And people kind of enjoyed it, even though it was not that respectable.
Yo, is that
You know, other
Carmela?
people are trying to do their laundry too.
Yeah, I thought that was Carmela Soprano for a second.
Frito-Lay took these findings and built an entire ad campaign around this feeling of subversive pleasure.
Those are her whites in the dryer.
It became a huge success.
More and more businesses are investing in this type of research, most of which is happening in secret.
Through neuroscience, but also with the help of psychology and behavioral economics, they get a pretty good idea of what makes us tick. And they use this knowledge to get us to buy more of their stuff.
And I'm going to give you 4 examples of this that you've probably seen in your everyday life.
1, they wear you down. Our brain operates in 2 different thinking modes. There's what's called System 1, which is fast, unconscious and automatic, and then there's System 2, which is deliberate and conscious, but takes a lot of effort.
If I ask you, what is your name? System 1 will immediately have an answer to that question. But if I ask you, what is 23 times 48, you're going to have to switch to System 2. This requires effort.
Damn.
Now imagine you're going grocery shopping.
You have to find your way around the different aisles and make loads of decisions in a short amount of time. When you finally get to the checkout counter, you're tired.
One way in which you can get somebody to be more System 1 oriented is actually through wearing them down. So System 2, very resource intensive, requires a lot of metabolic resources. When we're tired, when we're malnourished, we're much more likely to go with a much more impulsive System 1 response.
And that's why right at the end of your shopping trip, retailers tempt you with loads and loads of sugary snacks that you might just pick up at the very last moment. And shopping malls exploit the same situation. They're confusing, they're overwhelming, they're quite frankly exhausting, so you're more prone to spend money on something you might not even need. 2, they tell you what the right price is.
Let's say you walk into a store and you see a bottle of wine for, I don't know, let's say $15. Your brain doesn't really know if this is a lot or if this is not a lot, so it's immediately starting to look for some context.
Typically, people don't really have a sense of price. Like, they don't really know how much wine should cost or what's the right price of a wine.
This is Moran Cerf, a computer hacker turned neuroscientist and business professor.
The people create their kind of impressions of the price range not by knowledge, by information, but rather by kind of sampling reality.
And the store will happily give your brain a reality to latch onto by placing a second bottle next to it costing $50. Now your brain thinks $15, that's actually a pretty good deal, so it's very likely you're going to buy this bottle.
Our brains are like ships. We're looking for places to anchor, right? And adding any sort of context or understanding of value, having an anchor helps.
3, they keep you on the treadmill.
Another quirk of our brain that brands are using is that it's constantly seeking pleasure. And the key word here is seeking.
Once you're experiencing a sort of thing that you wanted, you don't just get to bask in that pure pleasure for a long time. It's not the type of emotion which is enduring over time. And that's a very, very good thing for brands.
Because pleasure is so fleeting, brands keep sending us to what's called the hedonic treadmill.
The iPhone 6, the iPhone 6S, this is iPhone 7, iPhone 11, the iPhone 12.
Right, let's say you buy iPhone 8. It's a brand new physical design, and you're loving it. And just like clockwork, 12 months later, 8S comes out. Whatever pleasure you got from achieving and purchasing the iPhone is now immediately gone. And now you're looking to, again, jump on the hedonic treadmill and chase the next pleasure.
4, they hide little nudges in plain sight.
So you remember that cinema story from the beginning? Subliminal marketing messages like this, so things that we can't pick up on consciously, are actually illegal in most countries. But a few companies must have thought, well, why don't we just hide them in plain sight?
Check out this ad from KFC. See anything unusual? Well, look again.
Smoke.
There's an actual dollar bill photoshopped
What
into the
the
burger,
fuck?
which happens to cost $1. And check out this can. Coca-Cola made it look like it's smiling to tie in with its brand image of happiness. And in literally every ad for watches, the time is set to 10 past 10, because that makes it look like the watch is smiling at you. These types of
What
subtle
the
hints are called primers.
So I would say right now,
controversial, but the priming works. That said, we still teach that in school, in business school, as kind of a mechanism people should be aware of, because it's easy to implement. So if for the small chance that it does work, why not try it if you're trying to kind of sell something?
So if you see a 1010 watch, you know, you're not compelled by some physical force to go out and do everything you can to buy it. But if you're already feeling like buying a watch, or maybe you're already favorable towards the brand, you know, that additional data point is going to push you maybe a little bit further.
And this is not limited to visual triggers. An experiment showed that if a wine store plays French music, customers buy more French wine. And if it plays German music, they buy more German wine.
Boo.
A lot of this stuff.
Bro, German music be hitting sometimes, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you. When I hear some German music, dun, 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 dun.
And if it plays German music, they buy more German wine.
Bro, that shit hit different, especially during Oktoberfest.
A lot of this stuff is hiding in archives for companies, and it is in their best interest not to reveal it. But we would be silly to think that this isn't part of the experiential design that companies are creating to better engage with the consumers.
So, where does all this leave us? Are we ultimately just puppets without a will of our own buying whatever corporations throw away? Or do we have a choice?
No.
Total mindless behavior is rare. Total control is also rare. And in between, there's a wide gray area, and we can move the needle between whether we make choices that are very informed and very kind of thorough, or very impulsive and not too thorough.
If you like something, that's going to be the most important determinant of whether or not you choose to spend money on it, or your time on it, or your resources in general on it. And that speaks a lot to the power that we have as consumers and individuals.
Now, neuromarketing is a very powerful tool. It gives companies access to something that even we don't have access to most of the time, our subconscious. But just knowing that and knowing how our brain works can already help us make better decisions. Have you ever come across any of the things we've shown you in the video? Let us know. What was that? Did you see that? Anyway, let us know in the comments and hit subscribe for more videos like this every Friday.
Every Friday, huh? Did you guys stick to your schedule, though? Did they post a video today? 10 hours ago. Yeah, they better stick to their Friday schedule. Yeah. That was a pretty fucking cool video. I'm gonna get back into this, but right now I'm gonna go pee. It's getting deep. We're getting deep on these cocksuckers. population without synthetic pesticides. Yeah, I went for a P. Also went for a number 2, so my bum hole, my butt feel weird right now, but in a good way. Apple's award-winning strategy for marketing. That sounds like a great next video. Oh, I was actually gonna like. They deserve a like for this. They deserve a like for this. I'll save this one for later. Newer marketing. That looks pretty cool. Okay, here we go. Is this the 007
After years of dominating the technology
music?
market, Apple has become synonymous with the words brilliant, creative,
genius,
and innovative. Apple is one of the greatest marketers of all time, with the iPhone becoming arguably the most popular and recognizable smartphone in the world. Apple's consistent marketing excellence is built on a series of core values, which others would benefit from learning from and applying to themselves. Apple has mastered the art of being ahead of its competitors. One of the primary reasons why they're able to be leaders in the industry rather than a follower is their amazing ability to innovate and keep things fresh.
Colorful.
With every release, there is always some new technological advancement that strives to push the industry forward. Whether it's a new chipset allowing their products to be more powerful, or the wireless AirPods that have become ubiquitous around the world. Apple's dedication to the customer experience and their ecosystem of products is the key reason why people flock to Apple stores and line up for hours just to get their hands on the new release. The importance of a first impression cannot be underestimated. Much like in person, the fact is that you make a judgment about something in approximately 4 seconds, and this is finalized largely within 30 seconds of initial contact. Apple knows this, ensuring that they master the art of minimalism. Product aesthetics, user interfaces, the brand logo, support functions, and even advertising are stripped down to the fundamentals. Apple's obsession with minimalism isn't solely about aesthetics. Rather, it's a crucial piece of their overall business strategy within the Apple ecosystem. Every component of this minimalist network is designed with related components in mind. The Apple TV interface isn't too different from that of Apple Music, whilst Apple Music itself borrows from the basic feel of Apple's operating system. Meanwhile, the gadgets also take up the same sort of family feel. The iMac, MacBook Pro, iPad, and iPhone, they're all radically different devices, but they're immediately recognizable as cousins, thanks to their shared detailing and material palette. This highly integrated, minimal aesthetic is priming you to enjoy Apple's other products, ensuring that when the new iPad is released, you already know how it works and that it will fit within your own personal home environment. When Apple brought out their first iPod back in 2001, the response from the press was apathetic. MP3 players were already around, and this new release was nothing new. In fact, most MP3 players were actually better than the first iPod. They had larger storage space, replaceable batteries, and they were cheaper. So, what did Apple's new iPod have to offer that other MP3 players didn't? The iPod looked cool. It had a sleek aluminium shell half the size of its competitors, and a scroll wheel that could zoom through the trademark 1,000 songs in your pocket. This easy-to-use, sleek iPod made the entire process from downloading your favorite song to the listening experience a simple and enjoyable experience. Apple has a legendary focus on customer experience. Every customer touchpoint, from the products through the user experience, and even the retail store, yields a consistent Apple experience. This clean, seamless, just works mantra ensures that every layer of the ecosystem works straight out the box, providing a logical experience that makes the user's life easier and more enjoyable. Apple's consumer base buys into their ecosystem, expecting a high-quality, polished experience from start to finish. When pairing this high-quality experience with Apple's aggressive expansion into every facet of our lives, it's no surprise that their products, apps, and technology have become an integral part of our modern lives and routine. Apple's approach to the harmonious integration of external developers, manufacturers, and services with their own catalog of products creates a thriving mesh of technology, creating a sort of ubiquitous computer all around us all the time. A key example of Apple's integration outside of their traditional devices is their integration seamlessly into the fitness industry. Wearables have become far more than a fashion accessory in recent years, with their ability to play your favorite high-energy playlist whilst also collecting valuable biometric data for those who are serious about their progress and development. This now vital bit of kit can play an essential role in your daily life, and is often the difference between lounging on the couch and finishing that 10K. When a piece of gear has this much influence on your life and routine, you'll be sure to place a lot of trust and belief in the product, further solidifying Apple into your daily life. Much like Louis Vuitton or Chanel, Apple is associated with high-quality, luxurious, and trendy products. To ensure that they maintain this image, Apple carries out a range of marketing practices to ensure that they look like the premium luxury company they claim to be. This brand identity is reflected in the pricing strategy of Apple, with all products undergoing fixed pricing. Due to Apple's unique market position and their ability to market their products through other channels, they can avoid dropping prices, a process that ensures they maintain that luxury goods appearance. This strategy also extends to the microcosm of Apple retailers, dealers, and resellers, where Apple implements a minimum advertised price. This sets a lower limit on the prices its resellers may advertise Apple's products, keeping prices relatively comparable to their own stores and with minimal wholesale discounts. This maintains the static high prices that Apple sets, distancing themselves from low-cost, inferior products. As we mentioned in our video talking about Tesla's marketing successes, having a small community of evangelists that support your brand through thick and thin is a vital step for brand longevity. They will support you during your hiccups and will push you through the other side. This group won't dare stray away from the Apple ecosystem, ensuring full integration and making sure that their friends and family are aware of its benefits. Marketing through word of mouth is a priceless marketing strategy for any business, and is hands down the most effective and reliable type of marketing. According to the Wharton School of Business, a customer you acquire from word of mouth has 16 to 25% higher lifetime value than those you acquire from other sources. Word of mouth will bring in loyal customers and increase customer retention rate. What's more, this highly valuable marketing strategy has no price attached. It's a side effect of the "it just works" high-quality product that Apple strives for. Competing in today's world can be tough. Being able to establish any kind of advantage can set you up for success over the competition. However, having a dedicated group that ensures your product is talked about in a good light, is shared on social media, and welcomes itself into everyone's life goes far beyond paying for adverts or product placement. Apple has continuously strived to create great products with a great experience attached to them. This dedication to the customer has paid off huge dividends, making Apple one of the biggest companies in the world. Apple is not just changing an industry, it's changing the world, reshaping it into a customer-focused economy and planting itself right in the middle of it. If you've enjoyed today's video, please click the like button and leave a comment below to let us know any topics you'd like us to cover in future. And if you'd like to see more of our content, click the subscribe button to be notified whenever a new video goes live.
Whenever a new video goes live.
In recent years, some of the world's biggest companies have discarded depth and detail to debrand. Burger King lost weight, Rolling Stone found a cleaner edge, VW shared its depth and shadow, as did Kia, Pfizer, Nissan, Durex, Intel, Toyota, and a host of other major brands. Even the munchable hero Julius Pringle had a flattening make-under with shaved head, dyed moustache, dilated eyes, and new pre-sprung eyebrows. But what prompted this landslide of logo debranding? Several interlocking forces are at work, the most immediate of which is the pressure of mobile-first design. Clients used to ask, can you make the logo bigger?
Yep.
Now the trick is to shrink an entire identity into a tiny digital box.
Yep.
Such pixel pressure usually means returning to the 2D look of old. Of course, this 2D look was more or less the norm until computers took over and design inflation spiraled out of control. Anyone who has overfiltered an Instagram sunset knows the seductive lure of visual excess, and it's a seduction to which the pros are not immune. The ability to round corners, drop shadows, customize gradients, and create complex lighting effects can easily overpower the creative brief, and often does. So many recent D-brands represent a return to sobriety after a spasm of software-abetted intoxication. There is also the question of maturity. Many of our biggest brands were born in a spirit of playful innocence that burst forth from their early branding. Take Foursquare, Airbnb, GoDaddy, Google. As these companies grew and the stakes rose, so their logos were obliged to mature, from cartoonish to corporate, flamboyant to flat, wacky to bland, illustrating the power of debranding to professionalize. And then there is fashion. Company graphics are as susceptible to trends as any other design, as we see in the stampede of fashion's little black dress logos, heralded by Yves Saint Laurent in 2012 and followed by Diane von Furstenberg, Calvin Klein, Berluti, Burberry, and Balmain. Yet the most intriguing element of the debranded logo is its potential to become a portal. Warner Brothers didn't just strip back its theatrical golden gilt, it unlocked a world of possibility that's increasingly vital to brands that span genres, showcase variety, or offer 31 flavors. For all these reasons, it seems likely that debranding will be with us for a while, but who knows when the pendulum will swing and the trend revert to detail, complexity, and personality. After all, once a critical mass has zagged against the prevailing zig, the margin becomes mainstream, the template flips, and the dance begins afresh. I'm Ben Schott.
That's pretty interesting. I did notice that a lot. Every company is sort of getting a simpler logo, or debranding as they say. And I guess it does have to do with the fact that everyone is viewing things on a little screen, so make it nice and little and pretty on your little screen. Compelling stuff here. This is a good little playlist.
Every choice that you make comes with a trade-off. Money is an invitation to critical thinking. You can afford anything, but not everything. So if there's something that you value, whether it's travel, food, or a house, you can have that thing. You just can't have an endless series of ands. You might not be able to have that thing and something else, and something else, and something else. And that doesn't just apply to your money, that applies to your time, your focus, your energy, your attention, any limited resource. And life is the ultimate limited resource. So when you practice being better at managing your money, you practice being better at managing your life. My name is Paula Pant. I am the host of the Afford Anything podcast. I want to help you reach financial independence by making smarter decisions with your money. The mistake that I see a lot of people make when they start asking questions about how to manage their money is that oftentimes people will ask a question about a product or a tactic. So for example, they might say, should I use this app? Or should I invest in cryptocurrency? First principles thinking is stripping away everything and really getting to the root of something. So if you think about a tree, the tactics and the products are like the leaves of a tree. That's the most visible surface. So of course, it's what people might ask about first. But first, let's start with the roots of that tree. The roots of that tree are your values. It's that question of what matters most. And then from those roots stem that trunk of the tree, which is your philosophy of life, the type of life that you want to lead. And from that philosophy, then your objective or your goals. How does that philosophy of living translate into specific goals? That's really that tree trunk. From there, you go out into the branches of the tree, and they represent the strategy. Now that you know your philosophy of living, you know your goals, now you can come up with strategies for how to obtain those goals. And then once you have that strategy in place, then those. My personal feeling is that everyone should aim to save and invest at least 20% of their income. And when I say save and invest, that includes making additional payments towards a debt above and beyond the minimum required, retirement savings, investments in an investment account. It includes building up your emergency fund. Start with a goal of saving 20%, and if you're nowhere close to that, increase your savings rate by 1%, and do that every month or two. It will take a few years, but you will, over time, get to that 20% mark. And then step 3 is repeat. This is a lifetime
Look at that
practice.
kick.
This is not a quick hit or something that's going to happen overnight. Money management happens for life.
Oh, that fucking kick.
There has
dude.
never been a point in history when the world has not been volatile. 100 years ago, there was also a pandemic going on, and there was a First World War. A decade later, the Great Depression. After that was World War II. After that, event after event after event that affected the entire globe. I came to FI because I was scared and anxious about the volatility in my life and the world. My response to that was to become obsessed with saving as much as I could because it allowed me to not be so scared of the future. It felt psychologically comforting to have these savings. Change is the nature of the world, the nature of time. And so if you're looking out at the big global factors that are happening in the world today, and you're feeling fear, embrace it and use that fear as motivation, as fuel to make wise decisions about how you spend your money, your time, your effort. That's how you build a life that's more intentional. And there's a lot of joy in that.
Get smarter, faster with videos from the world's biggest thinkers. To learn
I don't really like tips. Tips about communicating well, tips about writing. What I would prefer is a process that transforms you so the tips take place automatically. I mean, for instance, very often a tip is given when you're speaking to a crowd, vary the pace of your speech, vary the volume. Well, those are two good things, but if they happen mechanically, it gets to be kind of boring. Some people are encouraged when they're coached, at this point, leave where you're standing and walk over there and take a pause. Well, maybe that makes sense in terms of how it's written. At the end of that paragraph, you want to make a space before the next paragraph. But it doesn't necessarily make sense in terms of how you're talking and relating to the people you're talking with. That relating to them should be the source of a pause, the source of moving. Because it comes out of the thought process I'm going through, and it comes out of the thought process I sense you're going through. Have you understood that last part? So now I'm thinking, if you have, what's the next thing that I can tack on to that that'll mean something to you? And if you haven't, should I clarify it a little more? So there's a dynamic relationship between us that leads to a change in pace, to a change in volume, and that kind of thing. A tip is just an intellectualization of that, which might be okay to give somebody once they've got the grounding in the ability to connect, you know. But it ought to come out of the connection. It shouldn't be a checkbox that you tick off. So I really don't like tips. if I'm pressed really hard, there are 3 tips that I do kind of follow. Probably it's a good idea to follow these tips after you get used to being connected to somebody, but there are 3 things that I like to do. I call it the 3 rules of 3. So the first rule is I try only to say 3 important things when I talk to people, no more than 3. If it's one thing, that's maybe even better, but usually there's a lot to say. But when I make notes on what I want to talk about, if I see I'm going on past 3 to 4 and 5, I start eliminating them or seeing if I can fold them into the other things. Because 3 things are really all I can remember. And I don't work from notes when I talk to people, and I advise other people not to. I don't never read it, because reading just excommunicates you. It's not communication, it's excommunication, in my view. So I can't remember more than 3 things, and I don't think they can remember more than 3 things. So what's the point of telling them stuff they're not going to remember? So I stick to 3. That's rule number 1 of the rule of 3 things. The second rule is, if I have a difficult thing to understand, or something I think is not going to be that easy to get, I try to say it in 3 different ways, because I think if you come in from different angles, you have a better chance of getting a 3-dimensional view of this difficult idea. So I try to say it 3 different ways. And the third tip, which I always forget, is that if I have a difficult thing that's hard to get, I try to say it 3 times through the talk, so that the first time you hear it, you start to get used to it. The second time it's familiar, and the third time you say, oh yeah, right, okay. So now, I do follow those 3 tips, but I don't think I'd tell somebody, you're going to get up to talk, here are 3 tips to remember. It's a process. You got to get transformed into being a better communicator. You got to go through steps where it's like going to the gym. Only it's a lot more fun than going to the gym, because it involves connecting with another person, and we're built to connect with another person. In spite of the fact that we often avoid it, it actually is fun when we get into that position. So if we can get ourselves transformed into liking connecting with the audience we're talking to or writing for, then these tips will happen automatically, or finally we'll be able to put them to work in terms of that
Bro, what the fuck?
transformed way we have of connecting. It really feels good.
Mastering any physical skill, be it performing a pirouette, playing an instrument, or throwing a baseball, takes practice. Practice is the repetition of an action with the goal of improvement, and it helps us perform with more ease, speed, and confidence. So what does practice do in our brains to make us better at things? Our brains have 2 kinds of neural tissue, gray matter and white matter. The gray matter processes information in the brain, directing signals and sensory stimuli to nerve cells, while white matter is mostly made up of fatty tissue and nerve fibers. In order for our bodies to move, information needs to travel from the brain's gray matter down the spinal cord through a chain of nerve fibers called axons to our muscles. So how does practice or repetition affect the inner workings of our brains? The axons that exist in the white matter are wrapped with a fatty substance called myelin, and it's this myelin covering, or sheath, that seems to change with practice. Myelin is similar to insulation on electrical cables. It prevents energy loss from electrical signals that the brain uses, moving them more efficiently along neural pathways. Some recent studies in mice suggest that the repetition of a physical motion increases the layers of myelin sheath that insulates the axons.
Whoa.
And the more layers, the greater the insulation around the axon chains, forming a sort of superhighway for information connecting your brain to your muscles. So while many athletes and performers attribute their successes to muscle memory, muscles themselves don't really have memory. Rather, it may be the myelination of neural pathways that give these athletes and performers their edge with faster and more efficient neural pathways. There are many theories that attempt to quantify the number of hours, days, and even years of practice that it takes to master a skill. While we don't yet have a magic number, we do know that mastery isn't simply about the amount of hours of practice. It's also the quality and effectiveness of that practice. Effective practice is consistent, intensely focused, and targets content or weaknesses that lie at the edge of one's current abilities. So if effective practice is the key, how can we get the most out of our practice time? Try these tips. Focus on the task at hand. Minimize potential distractions by turning off the computer or TV and putting your cell phone on airplane mode. In one study, researchers observed 260 students studying. On average, those students were able to stay on task for only 6 minutes at a time. Laptops, smartphones, and particularly Facebook were the root of most distractions. Start out slowly or in slow motion. Coordination is built with repetitions, whether correct or incorrect. If you gradually increase the speed of the quality repetitions, you have a better chance of doing them correctly. Next, frequent repetitions with allotted breaks are common practice habits of elite performers. Studies have shown that many top athletes, musicians, and dancers spend 50 to 60 hours per week on activities related to their craft. Many divide their time used for effective practice into multiple daily practice sessions of limited duration. And finally, practice in your brain in vivid detail. It's a bit surprising, but a number of studies suggest that once a physical motion has been established, it can be reinforced just by imagining it. In one study, 144 basketball players were divided into 2 groups. Group A physically practiced one-handed free throws, while Group B only mentally practiced them. When they were tested at the end of the 2-week experiment, the intermediate and experienced players in both groups had improved by nearly the same amount. As scientists get closer to unraveling the secrets of our brains, our understanding of effective practice will only improve. In the meantime, effective practice is the best way we have of pushing our individual limits, achieving new heights, and maximizing our potential. Over 100,000 metric tons of caffeine are consumed around the world every year. That's equivalent to the weight of 14 Eiffel Towers. Most of this caffeine is consumed in coffee and tea, but it's also ingested in some sodas, chocolate, caffeine pills, and even beverages labeled decaf.
My G, if you want caffeine pills, you want something else, G. You low-key wish that was like fucking meth. You need to chill out there with you guys on the caffeine pills. Just have a coffee, have a fucking Red Bull.
Caffeine helps us feel alert, focused, happy, and energetic. Even if
Bro, look at that motherfucker. He's tweaking. Bro, he's off that dog shit right now. God damn. Got the baby with him. Babe.
And enough sleep. But it can also raise our blood pressure and make us feel anxious. It's the world's most widely used drug. So how does it keep us awake? Caffeine evolved in plants, where it serves a few purposes. In high doses, as it's found in the leaves and seeds of certain species, it's toxic to insects.
Oh God.
But when they consume it in lower doses, as it's found in nectar, it can actually help them remember and revisit flowers. In the human body, caffeine acts as a stimulant for the central nervous system. It keeps us awake by blocking one of the body's key sleep-inducing molecules, a substance called adenosine. Your body needs a constant supply of energy, which it gets by breaking down a high-energy molecule called ATP. In the process, it liberates adenosine, ATP's chemical backbone. Neurons in your brain have receptors perfectly tailored to this molecule. When adenosine docks to these receptors, it activates a cascade of biochemical reactions that cause neurons to fire more sluggishly and slow the release of important brain signaling molecules. In other words, you get sleepy. Caffeine is what's called an adenosine receptor antagonist. That means it derails this process of slowing your neurons down by blocking adenosine receptors. Caffeine and adenosine have a similar molecular structure, close enough that caffeine can wedge into the adenosine receptors, but not close enough to activate them.
Damn.
To summarize, adenosine inhibits your neurons. Caffeine inhibits the inhibitor, so it stimulates you. Caffeine can also boost positive feelings. In some neurons, the adenosine receptors are linked to receptors for another molecule called dopamine. One of dopamine's roles in the brain is to promote feelings of pleasure. When adenosine docks in one of these paired receptors, that can make it harder for dopamine to fit in its own spot, interrupting its mood-lifting work. But when caffeine takes adenosine's place, it doesn't have the same effect, and dopamine can slide in.
That's nuts.
There's evidence that caffeine's effects on adenosine and dopamine receptors can have long-term benefits too, reducing the risk of diseases like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's.
Bro, why did he just drink his coffee, bro?
And some types of cancer. Caffeine can also ramp up the body's ability to burn fat. In fact, some sports organizations think that caffeine gives athletes an unfair advantage and have placed limits on its consumption.
Damn.
From 1972 until 2004, Olympic athletes had to stay below a certain blood caffeine concentration to compete. Of course, not all of caffeine's effects are so helpful. It might make you feel better and more alert, but it can also raise your heart rate and blood pressure, cause increased urination or diarrhea, and contribute to insomnia and anxiety. Plus, the foods and beverages caffeine is found in have their own impacts on your body that have to be taken into account. Your brain can adapt to regular consumption of caffeine. If your adenosine receptors are perpetually clogged, your body will manufacture extra ones. That way, even with caffeine around, adenosine can still do its job of signaling the brain to power down. That's why you may find you need to consume more and more caffeine to feel as alert. There are more and more adenosine receptors to block. It's also why if you suddenly quit caffeine, you may experience an unpleasant withdrawal. With plenty of receptors and no competition, adenosine can work overtime, causing symptoms like headaches, tiredness, and depressed moods. But in a few days, the extra adenosine receptors will disappear. Your body will readjust, and you'll feel just as alert as ever, even without an infusion of the world's most popular stimulant.
Huh. Yeah, this is probably the coolest one ever. God damn. What would happen if you didn't sleep? Oh, shit.
In 1965, 17-year-old high school student Randy Garner stayed awake for 264 hours. That's 11 days to see how he'd cope without sleep. On the second day, his eyes stopped focusing. Next, he lost the ability to identify objects by touch. By day 3, Garner was moody and uncoordinated.
You can die.
At the end of the experiment, he was struggling to concentrate, had trouble with short-term memory, became paranoid, and started hallucinating. Although Garner recovered without long-term psychological or physical damage, for others, losing shut-eye can result in hormonal imbalance, illness, and in extreme cases, death. We're only beginning to understand why we sleep to begin with, but we do know it's essential. Adults need 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, and adolescents need about 10. We grow sleepy due to signals from our body telling our brain we are tired, and signals from the environment telling us it's dark outside. The rise in sleep-inducing chemicals like adenosine and melatonin send us into a light doze that grows deeper, making our breathing and heart rate slow down and our muscles relax. This non-REM sleep is when DNA is repaired and our bodies replenish themselves for the day ahead. In the United States, it's estimated that 30% of adults and 66% of adolescents are regularly sleep deprived. This isn't just a minor inconvenience. Staying awake can cause serious bodily harm. When we lose sleep, learning, memory, mood, and reaction time are affected. Sleeplessness may also cause inflammation, hallucinations, high blood pressure, and it's even been linked to diabetes and obesity. In 2014, a devoted soccer fan died after staying awake for 48 hours to watch the World Cup.
Damn.
While his untimely death was due to a stroke, studies show that chronically sleeping fewer than 6 hours a night increases stroke risk by 4.5 times.
Fuck that. I'm getting my 8 hours every night now. Fuck that shit.
Compared to those getting a consistent 7 to 8 hours of shut-eye. For a handful of people on the planet who carry a rare inherited genetic mutation, sleeplessness is a daily reality. This condition, known as fatal familial insomnia, places the body in a nightmarish state of wakefulness, forbidding it from entering the sanctuary of sleep. Within months or years, this progressively worsening condition leads to dementia and death. How can...
Bro, I don't get that very often, but goddamn, that shit sucks when you really can't sleep. You just sit there and you're just like, fuck. But most of the time, I'm so drained, I usually just fall right asleep. But damn.
Sleep deprivation cause such immense suffering? Scientists think the answer lies with the accumulation of waste products in the brain. During our waking hours, our cells are busy using up our day's energy sources, which get broken down into various byproducts, including adenosine. As adenosine builds up, it increases the urge to sleep, also known as sleep pressure. In fact, caffeine works by blocking adenosine's receptor pathways. Other waste products also build up in the brain, and if they're not cleared away, they collectively overload the brain and are thought to lead to the many negative symptoms of sleep deprivation. So what's happening in our brain when we sleep to prevent this? Scientists found something called the glymphatic system, a cleanup mechanism that removes this buildup and is much more active when we're asleep. It works by using cerebrospinal fluid to flush away toxic byproducts that accumulate between cells. Lymphatic vessels, which serve as pathways for immune cells, have recently been discovered in the brain, and they may also play a role in clearing out the brain's daily waste products. While scientists continue exploring the restorative mechanisms behind sleep, we can be sure that slipping into slumber is a necessity if we want to maintain our health and our sanity.
That was a good video. Come on, give me another good one. Ted Ed. Is it normal to talk to yourself? Yeah, what the fuck?
As your morning alarm blares, you mutter to yourself, why did I set it so early? While brushing your teeth, you think, I need a haircut. Unless, rushing out the front door, you reach for your keys and realize they're not there. Frustrated, you shout, I can't do anything right! Just in time to notice your neighbor. Being caught talking to yourself can feel embarrassing, and some people even stigmatize this behavior as a sign of mental instability. But decades of psychology research show that talking to yourself is completely normal.
Say that again.
Psychology research show that talking to yourself is completely normal.
Okay.
In fact, most, if not all of us, engage in some form of self-talk every single day. So, why do we talk to ourselves? And does what we say matter? Self-talk refers to the narration inside your head, sometimes called inner speech. It differs from mental imagery or recalling facts and figures. Specifically, psychologists define self-talk as verbalized thoughts directed toward yourself or some facet of your life. This includes personal conversations like, I need to work on my free throw. But it also includes reflections you have throughout the day, like, the gym's crowded tonight. I'll come back tomorrow. And while most self-talk in adults tends to be silent, speaking to yourself out loud also falls into this category. In fact, psychologists believe our first experiences with self-talk are mostly vocal, as children often speak to themselves out loud as they play. In the 1930s, Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky hypothesized that this kind of speech was actually key to development. By repeating conversations they've had with adults, children practice managing their behaviors and emotions on their own. Then, as they grow older, this outward self-talk tends to become internalized, morphing into a private inner dialogue. We know this internal self-talk is important and can help you plan, work through difficult situations, and even motivate you throughout the day. But studying self-talk can be difficult. It relies on study subjects clearly tracking a behavior that's spontaneous and often done without conscious control. For this reason, scientists are still working to answer basic questions like, why do some people self-talk more than others? What areas of the brain are activated during self-talk? And how does this activation differ from normal conversation? One thing we know for certain, however, is that what you say in these conversations can have real impacts on your attitude and performance. Engaging in self-talk that's instructional or motivational has been shown to increase focus, boost self-esteem, and help tackle everyday tasks. For example, one study of collegiate tennis players found that incorporating instructional self-talk into practice increased their concentration and accuracy. And just as chatting to a friend can help decrease stress, speaking directly to yourself may also help you regulate your emotions.
Damn.
Distanced self-talk is when you talk to yourself, as if in conversation with another person. So rather than, I'm gonna crush this exam, you might think, Caleb, you are prepared for this test. One study found that this kind of self-talk was especially beneficial for reducing stress when engaging in anxiety-inducing tasks, such as meeting new people or public speaking. But where positive self-talk can help you, negative self-talk can harm you. Most people are critical of themselves occasionally, but when this behavior gets too frequent or excessively negative, it can become toxic. High levels of negative self-talk are often predictive of anxiety in children and adults, and those who constantly blame themselves for their problems and ruminate on those situations typically experience more intense feelings of depression. Today, there's a field of psychological treatment called
CBT.
Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, or CBT, which is partially focused on regulating the tone of self-talk. Cognitive behavioral therapists often teach strategies to identify cycles of negative thoughts and replace them with neutral or more compassionate reflections. Over time, these tools can improve one's mental health. So the next time you find yourself chatting with yourself, remember to be kind. That inner voice is a partner you'll be talking to for many years to come.
Damn. That was a great ending.
Do you ever have trouble concentrating on and completing tasks? Learn more about the relationship between self-talk and procrastination with this video. Or for more actionable science-based advice on how to build strengths of heart, mind, and will, visit ed.ted.com/buildcharacter.
Yeah, that shit was kind of dope, yo. The benefits of doing nothing. Why do people join cults? So many videos, so many good videos out there. Why do people join cults? How to spot a liar. Wow. How to take the perfect. I'm just going to save all these for later. I did have a couple things on my favorites list to watch yet. Okay, we're going to go deep on the social media tip. So, here we go. Honestly, I gotta pee, so I'm gonna go pee real quick. And then we can begin. All right, Mark Zuckerberg, let's go.
So you're dealing with an addictive generation.
This is a big time bomb ticking.
This is no accident. Indeed, it is by design. I mean, seriously?
It was my mistake.
I mean, I think we can all feel it.
To try to make these products as addictive as
400%
possible.
spike in dopamine.
This is the
we
real
now know
shit.
that many of the major social media companies hire individuals called attention engineers who borrow principles from Las Vegas casino gambling, among other places, to try to make these products as addictive as possible. That is the desired use case of these products, is that you use it in an addictive fashion because that maximizes the profit that can be extracted from your attention and data.
It literally is a point now where I think we have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. That is truly where we are.
The way the technologist Jaron Lanier puts it is that these companies offer you shiny treats in exchange for minutes of your attention and bytes of your personal data, which can then be packaged up and sold.
What happened is that the attention economy and this race for attention got more and more competitive. And the more competitive it got to get people's attention on, say, a news website, the more they need to add these design principles, these more manipulative design tactics, as ways of holding on to your attention.
You don't realize it, but you are being programmed.
Social media tools are designed to be addictive. The actual desired use case of these tools is that you fragment your attention as much as possible throughout your waking hours. That's how these tools are designed to use. Well, we have a growing amount of research which tells us that if you spend large portions of your day in a state of fragmented attention, so large portions of your day where you're constantly breaking up your attention, take a quick glance, do a just check, and just quickly look at Instagram, that this can permanently reduce your capacity for concentration. I'm especially worried about this when we look at the younger generation coming up, which is the most saturated in this technology.
It's very addictive because if you pull on the slot machine arm enough, you will win. And you never know which pull will reward you.
Jordan Peters.
That's an addictive behavior, and it's dopamine that is driving that addiction. So what happens with social media is Robert Sapolsky, who did the foundational research on this at Stanford, calls it the magic of maybe. When you look at your phone and maybe there's a text there and maybe there's not, and you don't know, when it shows up, that high you get, that's dopamine. It's the magic of maybe. Maybe it'll be there, maybe it won't. When it shows up, you get a 400% spike in dopamine. That is roughly the same amount of dopamine as you're getting from cocaine. It's slightly less than an extremely addictive drug like cocaine. And that's what's happening.
We really care what other people think of us. So for example, you know, when you upload a new photo, a new profile photo of yourself on Facebook, that's a moment where our mind is very vulnerable to knowing what other people think of my new profile photo. And so when we get new likes on our profile photo, Facebook, knowing this, could actually message me and say, oh, you have new likes on your profile photo. And it knows that we'll be vulnerable to that moment because we all really care about when we're tagged in a photo or when we have a new profile photo. And the thing is that they control the dial, the technology companies control the dial for when and how long your profile photo shows up on other people's news feeds. So they can orchestrate it so that other people more often end up liking your profile photo over a delayed period of time, for example, so that you end up having to more frequently come back and see what the new likes are.
And it's literally rewiring our brain. Even social media, the challenge is, you know, with these terms like Facebook depression and everything, because
what's that?
This is social media depression because whereas everyone's looking at their feed and they're comparing their lives to other people, their highlights of other people's lives.
Wow.
And there's actually less life satisfaction, more sadness, depression, and stuff like that.
And it's interesting because if you think about things that, you know, routinely produce a lot of dopamine, alcohol, for example, there's a drinking age, right? We have a drinking age. The alcohol releases a whole lot of dopamine. It makes you feel really, really good. We say, okay, you can have that, but you gotta wait. You gotta be 21 years old. We don't do that with social media. We're, you know, essentially putting highly addictive drugs into the hands of kids before they have any natural defenses against them. And what you're seeing with internet addiction, with social media addiction, it's the same thing over and over. It's people trying to change their state of consciousness with a device trying to get at the underlying neurochemical chemistry, and it's very, very addictive.
And so I would say the problem with the gadgets, and I mean, they're amazing things, is that they proximately interfere with medium to long-term goals, I would say. And so I think the first thing you have to do to bring them under control is figure out what it is that their use is interfering with. It has to be something important. So you think, well, I want to do something important. Well, what is that? Oh, it could be personal. Maybe you want to have a relationship. You want to get married. You want to have kids. You want to have a career that's meaningful. You know, you want to have a life. You want to have an Abrahamic adventure and be the father of nations, let's say. Well, you can't be ratting away on your cell phone and doing that. And so I think part of it is to set your sights high and make a plan and figure out who you could be and see if obsessive utilization of smartphone fits into that vision of nobility. And it will partly because they're unbelievably powerful communication devices, but so often it's for lack of something better to do, and it also interferes.
You know, imagine like when you take that to the extreme, where, you know, bad actors can now manipulate large swaths of people to do anything you want. It's a really, really bad state of affairs. And we compound the problem, right? We curate our lives around this perceived sense of perfection because we get rewarded in these short-term signals, hearts, likes, thumbs up, and we conflate that with value and we conflate it with truth. And instead what it really is fake, brittle popularity. That's short-term and that leaves you even more, and admit it, vacant and empty before you did it. Because then it forces you into this vicious cycle where you're like, what's the next thing I need to do now? Because I need it back. Think about that compounded by 2 billion people. And then think about how people react then to the perceptions of others. It's really bad.
So we know from the research literature that the more you use social media, the more likely you are to feel lonely or isolated. We know that the constant exposure to your friends' carefully curated positive portrayals of their life can leave you to feel inadequate and can increase rates of depression. And something I think we're going to be hearing more about in the near future is that there's a fundamental mismatch between the way our brains are wired and this behavior of exposing yourself to stimuli with intermittent rewards throughout all of your waking hours. So it's one thing to spend a couple hours at the slot machine in Las Vegas, but if you bring a slot machine with you and you pull that handle all day long from when you wake up to when you go to bed, we're not wired from it. It short circuits the brain, and we're starting to find that it has actual cognitive consequences, one of them being this sort of pervasive background hum of anxiety.
Here's the thing. The world we live in isn't real. Social media isn't real. And by design, social media rewards us for showing our best life. The edited, posed, champagne, Michelin star, holiday, orchestrated best angle of our life, the highlight reel. But you don't ever see real life, the 99% of our lives, the behind the scenes, the unglamorous, unfiltered, day-to-day, bland normality. And you end up comparing your behind the scenes to other people's fake highlight reel and using others as a mirror or benchmark for how you should look, how successful you should be, or how you should live. These fake comparisons will only serve to make you feel inadequate and inferior to something that isn't even real. Research continually shows that comparing your life to someone else's creates envy, low self-confidence, low self-esteem, and depression. You compare yourself to other people every single day, consciously or subconsciously, and no matter what I say, you're not going to stop, because comparing one thing to another is a natural human thing to do. Whether we want to admit it or not, a big reason why anything has value is because there's something worse or better to compare it to. Think about it. An old brick of a mobile phone with a big aerial is only considered amazing in a world before the smartphone. The horse and carriage is only considered a phenomenal mode of transport until the car comes along. The answer isn't to stop making comparisons, because unfortunately we can't control that. But you have to change the object of your comparison. From someone else to yourself. You have to measure yourself against yourself. And by doing this, you start at a base point where you consider yourself to be perfectly fine exactly how you are. But it also is the most effective, motivating, and healthy way to work to improve yourself. You'll become your happiest self when you stop putting pressure on yourself to be more like someone else, and when you start comparing real to real.
We're in a really bad state of affairs right now, in my opinion. It is eroding the core foundations of how people behave by and between each other. And I don't have a good solution. You know, my solution is I just don't use these tools anymore. I haven't for years. It's created huge tension with my friends, huge tensions in my social circles. If you look at, like, you know, my Facebook feed, I've posted maybe 2 times in 7 years. 3 times, 5 times. It's like it's less than 10. And it's weird. I guess I kind of just innately didn't want to get programmed. And so I just tuned it out. But I didn't confront it. And now to see what's happening, it really bums me out.
Back in the 1970s and the early 80s at Xerox PARC, when Steve Jobs first went over and saw the graphical user interface, the way people talked about computers and what computers were supposed to be was a bicycle for our minds. That here we are, you take a human being, and they have a certain set of capacities and capabilities. And then you give them a bicycle, and they can go to all these new distances. They're empowered to go to these brand new places and to do these new things, to have these new capacities. And that's always been the philosophy of people who make technologies. How do we create bicycles for our minds to do and empower us to feel and access more? Now, when the first iPhone was introduced, it was also the philosophy of these technologies. How do we empower people to do something more? And in those days, it wasn't manipulative because there was no competition for attention. Photoshop wasn't trying to maximize how much attention it took from you. It didn't measure its success that way. And the internet overall had been in the very beginning not designed to maximize attention. It was just putting things out there, creating these message boards. It wasn't designed with this whole persuasive psychology that emerged later.
If you feed the beast, that beast will destroy you. If you push back on it, we have a chance to control it and rein it in. And it is a point in time where people need to hard break from some of these tools and the things that you rely on. The short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops that we have created are destroying how society works. No civil discourse, no cooperation, misinformation, mistruth. And it's not an American problem. This is not about Russian ads. This is a global problem.
Mr. Zuckerberg, would you be comfortable sharing with us the name of the hotel you stayed in last night?
No. If you're anything like me, you probably spend a considerable amount of time on social media. Let's be real. We've all found ourselves scrolling endlessly through images of the same company logos on LinkedIn of people announcing their summer internships. Or we found ourselves wanting a very clearly randomized Instagram filter to tell us which Disney villain we are. It happens, we've all been there. But I definitely spend the majority of my social media time on Instagram. I'll come across my friends' vacation photos, the occasional meme, a cool dance video.
Occasional meme? You mean everything's a meme, bro?
And sometimes I'll come across a sponsored post promoting some type of product by an influencer. You've probably heard of the word influencer, or even come across their posts and cringed at their captions that constantly remind you to use my code for 10% off. But what does it mean really? The term influencer is one of those words that's just so overused and misunderstood that it doesn't really mean anything anymore, like blockchain. Influencer can be an insult, but also a marketing method, or a career path, but also that thing that my friend does for fun. Essentially, an influencer is someone who possesses the power to affect purchasing decisions of others based on their knowledge, credibility, and relationship with their audience. Within the context of social media, an influencer promotes a brand or product to their follower base through digital content in exchange for monetary compensation. Oh, I know what you're talking about now. You're talking about those obnoxious people on Instagram who get paid for posting and make ridiculous amounts of money without putting in any real effort. Well, not quite. I've always been interested in how the influencer industry actually works. This past year, I decided to give it a shot. With just over 1,000 followers on Instagram, I jumped on the hype train of becoming an influencer. I absolutely, without a doubt, love fashion. And for the past few years, I've particularly enjoyed shopping with the local boutique that's become my one-stop shop, Dress Up. Last year, when I heard that the brand was recruiting brand ambassadors from Georgia Tech, I was immediately interested. Not for the perks, but for the opportunity to be affiliated with a brand that I held close to my heart. Now, I'm a computer science major, so I have no professional knowledge of communication strategies or marketing practices. All that I know about social media marketing stems from my own experiences and what I enjoy viewing and engaging with. But with one passionate application and some luck, I got the gig. All I had to do was post regularly according to the loose guidelines and watch the perks roll in. I'm an active Instagram user. I know how to do this. How hard can it be? Turns out, it's a lot harder to be authentic, relevant, engaging, consistent, active, and unique than you would think. Brands are tapping into the communities of influencers who are experts in their respective niches, but who have also harnessed the accessibility of social media to create personal connections and trust with their followers. Now we can see with Business Insider that in 2019, the influencer marketing industry was worth $8 billion, and it's projected to be worth up to $15 billion by 2022. So it's very clear that influencer marketing is becoming a huge aspect within the industry. In 2019, MAC Cosmetics initiated the most successful ad campaign with influencers on TikTok to boost their profile amongst Gen Z that collected over 2.3 billion views. In 2018, Lyft became the most mentioned brand on Instagram through a series of influencer campaigns promoting ride sharing and active engagement. In
That's a weird ass logo. Do they still have that shit? Yo, I guarantee Lyft does not have this logo anymore. I guarantee it. It's the F and the T for me. I guarantee they don't have this logo anymore. They changed it. Alright, let's go to their fucking website here. Oh, what the is that really their logo? That shit, I don't remember it being like, it looks like it says LFA. I don't remember it being like that. That's weird. That's weird.
2017, Nike gained significant buzz for the launch of the Air Vapor Max on YouTube through a viral video campaign promoting their shoe and what's inside the shoe by influencers. So as you can see, these are just 3 of the several brands that have invested heavily into influencer marketing. So it's clear that these companies are now investing heavily into this type of field, and it's important to consider. In 2017, Rihanna launched her makeup brand, Fenty Beauty, that launched huge success commercially. Fenty Beauty launched 40 shades of foundation, ranging from the lightest skin tones to the deepest, that were all marketed by beauty influencers of varying skin tones, ethnic backgrounds, and follower counts. This launch truly set the precedent for inclusive marketing, and now we're seeing that marketing is becoming much more authentic, relevant, and relatable. We as consumers are so diverse, not only in terms of thoughts, but also in terms of our opinions, our looks, and our backgrounds. So it's important that we're able to look up to people who are similar to us. Cassie Ho is an Asian American fitness influencer who created her brand, Blogilates, as a way to promote living a healthy and balanced lifestyle. Her quick at-home workouts cater to women who are looking for fun and creative ways to stay active without needing a gym. Cassie spreads messages of body positivity within women who might not look like the mainstream image of fit women, but who can be just as active, toned, and healthy. Anchal Seda is an Indian-British beauty influencer who shares her love for makeup while embracing her culture and her heritage. Her recommendations and tutorials cater to women who don't see representations of their cultural looks and deeper skin tones in mainstream marketing. Anchal inspires ethnic women to feel comfortable in their own skin and to feel just as beautiful in their cultural looks as they do in their everyday looks. Justina Zarek, more commonly known as iJustine, is a technology influencer who reviews all the latest gadgets and shares key comparisons, reviews, and reactions in an engaging and easy to understand way. Her content caters to people who might not keep up with tech on their own, but who are still interested in keeping up with the latest trends and the latest releases. Justine's earned a spot as one of the most influential people within the tech space through her own style, without fitting the mold of being a stereotypical tech nerd. And the list goes on and on. These influencers are all representing the niches that they come from, and they're driving inclusion within the marketing space. When you think about it now, influencers are serving a much higher purpose than just getting you the best discount, right? Influencers are no longer the new kids on the block. They've completely disrupted the marketing industry and completely transformed it by capitalizing on their authenticity and their niche. If you think being an influencer seems like a permanent vacation, that couldn't be further from the truth. These creators are putting in hours of hard work and working to represent people of every age, gender, nationality, and sexual background. So, what does this mean for you? When you see a sponsored post by an influencer, don't automatically roll your eyes at them. Take a second to understand where they're coming from and what their message is.
Money.
If you can relate to that mission, then support them and engage with their content
They
so
don't
that
give
they
a
can
fuck
continue to create more
about
content.
you. It's money.
But even if you don't relate to their mission, don't put them down. You never know who's positively impacted by their message. Influencers are here to stay whether you're on board or not. So let's support them as they make strides in bringing diversity and inclusion to traditional marketing.
Fuck. How did this just turn into a persuasive speech to... What did she just say?
Support them as they
Support influencers?
make strides in bringing diversity and inclusion to traditional marketing. Let's make way for these new age entrepreneurs. Thank you.
That was very speechy. Very speechy. Didn't feel so natural. But no, that was a good speech. I mean, for what it is, I learned something, so. Yep. On the future of higher education. How to love yourself to the core. We'll save that. Anyways, did I have any more in my favorites? I don't know. I think that was all I wanted to watch. Yeah, I'm kind of hungry now. I might go get something to eat, so I might be back on. I might not. So here we are. Hope you learned something. All right, boys and girls. Peace.